There are millions of podcasts being done all over the world that take on the personalities of their creator. Some bring in thousands of listeners each week. Some bring in large amounts of revenue, while others entertain millions and help sell products. If you're like many podcasters, you want to reach your maximum potential. But how? How do you make your podcast stand out from all the rest? Join Dr. Barrett Matthews as he talks to experts who are doing it on The Productive Podcaster. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Productive Podcaster. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I am happy to have you here. Got a great show for you today. I'm excited to have you. So if this is your first time listening or watching The Productive Podcaster, what I want to tell you is what the show is about. The Productive Podcaster is a podcast for podcasters. What we want to do is bring on people who are podcasting to help those of you who are thinking about podcasting, or those of you who are already podcasting, but just want to get that little bit of edge, some tips, some pointers, whatever. We want to help you to make sure you have a productive podcast. So that being said, what I would like for all of you to do right now is share this. Let everyone know that you are listening to The Productive Podcaster. Also, you can go to our Patreon page and support the show if you like. We'd love to have you there. We got some great perks for you. If you just go to The Productive Podcaster, you can find out more. And of course, check us out on theproductivepodcaster.com. Check out our website. You can listen to all of our episodes. We'd love to have you there as well. So to begin with the show, I like to start off every episode with a segment I like to call Pros and Cons.
Pros and Cons.
Now, what is pros and cons? Pros and cons is a segment where I give a pro tip to you to help you in starting your podcasting career, so to speak. So today's pros and cons is really just this. Don't rush your success. Don't rush your success. In podcasting, I see a lot of people, they do 4 episodes, and if they don't have 100 subscribers, if they don't have 1,000 subscribers, if they don't see money coming into their account because they're selling something, they give up, they quit podcasting. It doesn't work like that, everybody. Unless you're already famous or unless you already have a following that's been waiting for your podcast, it doesn't always happen overnight. You have to build it. Be willing to put in the time to build your podcast. If you do, you'll see the long-term effects as long as you take the time to build it. So that is pros and cons for today. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, I'm going to have my very special guest. And I know y'all are saying the same thing. You always say you got a special guest. I can't help it if all my guests are special. So y'all can hate on me if you want to, but my guests are special. So I got one coming up for you. So I want you guys to stick around. I'll give you a little hint. We're going to have an unfiltered conversation. How about that? Ooh, a little risque, huh? So, but when we come back, we're going to have our special guest. So just stay right there. We'll be back in 2 and 2. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Why should you contact Media Boss Club right now? Well, because you can get a podcast done for you. You can learn all the aspects that go into putting together a great podcast and have someone else do it for you. That's right. We will build your podcast around your content and make it so you can concentrate on the money-making activities of your business. Contact MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com today, and let us get your podcast started right now. All right, welcome back to the Productive Podcaster. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews. As I mentioned before the break, I have a very special guest for you guys, and she's down in the A, my old stomping grounds. You know, she's down, but she is an author. I'm telling you, look, my guests are special. They don't just podcast. She's an author, so she knows how to write some things and get the written word out there. Because you know what she's doing. You probably heard the commercial when we were in the break about media. She is capitalizing on all media. She's being omnipresent, not just a podcast, but a book as well. And she's an entrepreneur. She knows how to make business happen. She knows how to bring in that cash. See, y'all are talking about what you want to do. She's doing it. So with no further ado, the host of the Unfiltered podcast, Jade Lawrence. Jade, welcome to the Productive Podcaster. And I'm so happy to have you as a part of the show.
Hi, Barrett. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. Y'all hear that accent? Y'all hear it? Y'all hear it? Yeah, y'all like that, don't you? So, Jay, tell us about the accent first before we even get into it. Tell us about the accent.
I'm from Jamaica.
He's from Jamaica. What part of Jamaica are you from?
Kingston.
Woo! Y'all gotta like the way that sounds. I'm telling you, it sounds good. It makes me want to go there right now.
You ought to. You need to.
I do. I do. I really, really, really do. But look, with the whole COVID thing, I'm like anxious to just go somewhere, but still cautious.
I'm there with you.
I know you are. We talked about this before.
Yeah, we did.
We're in the same boat on that. I'm not even that anxious to come down where you are right now. So.
Listen, I'm at home. I stay home. So that's where we are.
Exactly. So first, before I even get into your podcast, I want to get into the entrepreneurship part. But tell us about your business. What do you do?
So I have a publishing company. It's called Amaria Publishing, where we do books. So from children's book to adults book, we do it from scratch. So we do the proofreading, we do the editing. If they want illustrations, we get illustrators.
Really?
And we put it up on the KDP, which is the Amazon site. So they get their barcode, everything on it. So we do it from start to finish. All they need to do is to write the book and send it to me, and we get the job done for them.
I may be talking to you, and I wish I had known this like last year, because a good friend of mine, who very, very popular person, he was looking for an illustrator, and I could not find one.
Really?
Yes. His book is out now, but
no, I'm just saying you couldn't find one because they're illustrators. There are a lot of illustrators.
Well, he asked me did I know of any.
Oh, okay.
Yes, did I know of any? So just
okay.
Wow. If I'd known that then, man, that would have been great. Because I like connecting people. I like helping people.
Understood.
But my next book, I was thinking about having some illustration there, so now I know who to call.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So now you're an author. How many books have you written?
Just one.
Just the one. Well, you're talking about just the one. One is enough.
One is enough, but yeah, one book. One book.
You're not see. Okay. The title of this podcast is The Productive Podcaster. I have been a productivity coach for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot tell you how many people have said to me they want to write a book or they're going to write a book, and they have not done a thing. So when you say you've done just the one, no. Pat yourself on the back because you have written the book. So
I have written the book. I've done it.
Yes, exactly. You have written the book. You've got it out there. And I want to tell those of you who are out there who are thinking about doing a podcast, if you have a book, it helps your podcast.
It does.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on it? Tell them how it helps your podcast.
In terms of topics. So what you write your book on, you can speak about. So you can break it up also into different categories. So like in my book, I speak about like getting to know yourself in terms of self-introspection before you even get married. So we have a broad topic of marriage. We can dissect it and break it down into different topics. So you'll have different episodes for your podcast to talk about something. So it's not limited. Having a book helps to give you different options of what to speak about and break down things and have different opinions on a specific topic or different topics. So it helps you to even express yourself more because you have expressed yourself in the book. So exactly what you're doing in the book, that's not what you bring out to the forum.
I love it. I love it. And see, the one thing I always say about having the book, it's a business card on steroids. Meaning that it's a credibility piece for you. You know how when you go to networking functions, people say, do you have a card? Yeah. Well, now it's on steroids. So when they know you have a book, you become important to people. And I'm not saying that, tongue in cheek. It's true. People, when they know that someone is speaking and they are an author, it helps their credibility. So when you have a podcast and a book, they want to hear the author. Or in a video podcast, they want to see the author. So it can help lend credibility to your podcast. But as Dave mentioned, also you can talk about so many different topics just from that book. Yes. My very first book, I'm still doing interviews and teaching classes just from that first book. I've written 3 of them, but the first book is still getting me paid. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, and it helps. It definitely can help your podcast. It's a credibility piece. Now, let's talk about your podcast, the Unfiltered podcast. So, I love that title. So I want to know where you came up with that.
So I gave it a title based on my personality. So I'm unfiltered. I like to talk about different things. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll talk about it as long as there's substance to it. So, and I mean, we're living in a society or time where we don't really want to hear the news because of so many things that are taking place, especially when the pandemic was heightened. So for the name, it came about, we're talking about different things but in a lighter setting. So we're speaking about unfiltered topics that you probably won't talk about, and you hear details or in-depth conversations about it that will actually bring awareness to you in a different way. So that's what we really do. So instead of it being like question answer, it's like a conversation. So you're able to just relax while you're listening and you're learning. That's where it really came from. And because I'm unfiltered, we talk about everything. That's really where it is.
Yes. Okay, you can't just leave it there. What kind of topics have you talked about? Just give me a few. Just a few. It's a sample.
So I'm talking about opinionated in-laws.
Opinionated in-laws.
Yes. We've spoken about sex. We've spoken about technology, where you are also part of the podcast. We have spoken about stress. We have spoken about different things.
Wow.
How to divorce. I've spoken about my divorce on it. So we've spoken about different things. Right. So
I hope the opinionated in-laws didn't chime in on that one. I mean, my uncle used to call them the outlaws. So, but yeah, wow, those are some serious topics to get into. I can see where that can carry a podcast. And on that note, for those of you listening, you see how she can just jump around from topic to topic? There is a podcast on everything. So a lot of you right now are still hesitant to start your podcast, wondering, well, is anyone going to be interested? There's always someone interested in a particular topic. But you won't know that if you don't put it out there. So I definitely encourage that. Now, how long have you been doing your podcast?
2 years.
2 years?
Yes. Roughly 2 years. I just started my 5th season now.
Okay.
So it's roughly 2 years.
So how many episodes do you do in a season?
Around 23, 24.
Okay. And that's another point, guys. Because a lot of people, they worry about, can I keep content going? Do a season, take a break. Do a season, take a break. What I think, Jade, is that people don't understand that it is their show. It is their podcast. And they're waiting for some hard and fast rules that they have to adhere to. And there are none.
There are none. You don't have to follow that. And even for me, I take breaks. I put out podcasts from I've been doing it. I've never skipped a week of podcasting. And I take breaks in terms of I do not record something for today. You know, I plan ahead. So while my podcast is been going out and I'm pushing it every week, I'm taking a break from my podcasting. So you have to do it and manage it in a way that it benefits you also, and it benefits your podcast also, because you don't want to keep pushing and pushing, and then after all you get tired of your own podcast and don't want to invest in it. Right. So you push forward and you plan ahead. You don't just do things in the moment, because that alone is all right. Every week I have a podcast out. Every Monday night I'm baffling about how to do it. It's gonna take a toll on you at a point.
Yeah.
So you plan for the future and you can take rest while you're planning. So while your podcast it's just like business. You don't buy stuff to sell tomorrow. You have to buy stuff from way before so you can have it to sell for a couple of weeks, couple of months, same way.
You made a great point about taking a break and about making sure that you plan ahead. That is something that worries a lot of people as well. A lot of people are worried about going live. I got news for you guys. What you're listening to right now, Jada and I recorded weeks ago.
Okay.
So I'm letting you guys know that. So don't panic. Now, when you do that, though, you have to make sure that when you're talking, that you're talking about something that is topical. So, for instance, we recorded this. You heard Jada and I mention the pandemic. Well, we know by the time this thing airs, the pandemic is still happening.
Yes.
We're fairly confident in that the pandemic is still happening. And so when we bring that topic up, like for instance, let's say when and I'm not telling you when we recorded it, but let's say it was around Christmas time and we started talking about Christmas. Well, if it airs in February, then the topic
Christmas is already gone.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. So you want to make sure that when you're talking about something, you know you're going to be recording it, that you are talking about subjects that are topical and that people can relate. Now, don't get me wrong, the episode is going to live in perpetuity, so it's going to be there forever. So it doesn't really matter when the person listens to it. But when I put it out there, I want the topic to still be topical and
relevant for the season.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't know how long the pandemic will be going. So anyway, that's just a subject we got to deal with. Now, let me ask you this. When you started your podcast, what was the biggest challenge you ran into?
I said it earlier. My biggest challenge was many things.
Didn't expect that. But
many things. In terms of, I was concerned about niche, because when I heard about the podcast and I, was just talking about it, especially with my husband, it was, what niche am I gonna go into? First of all, I don't like to be fixed in any box. I'm unfiltered. I don't like to be put in any box for anything. So that was my first concern. Are people gonna listen? And I was just concerned about my productivity. I didn't want to be doing something and I'm gonna get tired of it. So I wanted to ensure that while I'm doing it, I'm enjoying it.
Right.
So
right.
I speak about topics. Right. I speak about topics that I enjoy, while it's not just enjoyment or it's just gossip. It's topics that people can learn from. And you're being entertained while you're learning from something. So I wanted that. So it was a challenge for me. And I mean, you talked about it earlier, having people subscribe, having people listen to. I cried a couple times when I started. I'm like, oh my God, how is this gonna work? But learning over the time that, listen, you're putting out something and people will listen to it. You just need to have confidence in what you're doing, because if you're a podcast host and you're not confident in your own thing, ain't nobody gonna be confident in it. So I had to learn that and overcome that. So that was initially my fear while beginning the podcast, and even how to start. So, I mean, I just got up and said, hey, I've been thinking about this. I'm going to do it,
Good.
And I just got up, did it, had my content work, because people think that sometimes podcasters is just you're going and talking. That's not really the case. You have to plan what you're going to speak about as you'll be rambling. No one learns from rambling. So you now have to sit down and plan and say, okay, I'm going to be speaking about so and so this item, and you just break it down. Then if it is that you want to do it by yourself, you go ahead. If it is that you're going to get guests, you go ahead and do so. But then while you're doing that, you learn, you go into different aspects, you put yourself into different groups, you network.
Yes.
Because it's important to network while you're doing podcasting and you're learning different style. Listen to other things also, so you can know how to, better your skills.
Mhm.
And you're not just talking for talking, you're talking for a purpose. We all want to do a podcast to create purpose out there so people can just learn and get from our tables that we're serving, basically.
I love it. I love it. Now, one quick last question. Are you still having challenges even 2 years in? Are you still having things you want to get better at, or you think you got it down?
I mean, I'm always trying to get better at something. Always thinking about ways to get better with it.
Good.
So if you're not learning, you're dying. So every day we learn. Every day we try and fix something to make it better. If it is that I was using a certain platform before and it was not working, it wasn't giving the quality that I want, I change platforms.
Right.
So we do different things. We create our own space and we create it, and we want it to also be so professional that when we're doing it, it's not hop and blush. We're doing it and it's professional and people actually want to listen to it. So you target the best audience for you and you target the best guest and the best listeners. So it's something that's edifying, because when you put it out, it's always going to be there in the airspace.
Exactly.
So you don't want something that when you listen back, you're like, why did I put that out?
Right.
You just take the time to create your own craft and make it yours.
So the Unfiltered podcast, tell people where they can find your podcast.
You can find the Unfiltered by Jade podcast on all social media. Well, it's on all podcast platforms. Let me not say social media, but you can find it. We are on Instagram at the Unfiltered by Jade. We're on YouTube at the Unfiltered by Jade. We're on Anchor. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeart. We're on Apple. We're all major podcast platforms.
All right. Unfiltered by Jade, guys. Make sure you subscribe to her podcast right now. Make sure you support her podcast. Now, we're going to take a break right now. I told you she was great, though, didn't I tell you? And we're going to take a break, but Jade is not going anywhere. We're going to come back with another segment and she is going to participate in it. So I want you guys to stay right where you are. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of the Productive Podcast. It's time to be a boss, a media boss. If you're in business for yourself, it's time that you get your message out, and podcasting is the best way to do it. Let us create a done-for-you podcast experience with Media Boss Club. All you have to do is go to MediaBossClub.com and we'll create a done-for-you podcast right now. That's MediaBossClub.com. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. right, guys, welcome back to the Productive Podcaster. I'm Dr. Barrett Matthews. I did not lie. I told you my guest was very special and she delivered. I knew that, but you didn't know that, but now you know. So Jade came and she brought it, and make sure you subscribe to her podcast, The Unfiltered by Jade. And she is right here. She didn't go anywhere. She's right here because we're going to go over a segment that we cover here on this podcast called PodQuest.
PodQuest.
And that is where one of you gets to ask a question and we answer. Now, first of all, before y'all get into this, people want to know, how can I get my question answered about podcasting? Well, all you have to do is go to the Facebook group, which is called The Productive Podcaster. And you go there, The Productive Podcaster. See, those of you who are listening don't know what I just did. If you watch it, you'll know. But anyway, you go to the Productive Podcaster Facebook group and put your question there, and your question may get answered. So today's question, Jade, someone wants to know, do I need to have an audio board in order to do a podcast? I'll let you go first.
First of all, no. In my opinion, no, you don't.
Yeah, and she's right. You don't. I think a lot of people, Jade, I think they overthink the podcasting aspect of it. I gotta have this. I get all asked all the time, what's the best equipment? I said, look, just get started.
Precisely.
Just get started. You can upgrade your equipment as you go. I can't tell you how many microphones I have because I've gone through different microphones. I got 2 different boards and I don't always use them. So it's up to you, but you don't have to have an audio board. I mean, when I use my board, I use it more for sound effects. Not necessarily for the quality of the sound. I use it for sound effects because I just like some of the sound effects on there, but you don't have to have an audio board to get your podcast going. So that is PodQuest for today. Now, before I let you go, Jade, I want to ask you one more time, please let everyone know where they can check out your podcast.
Okay, so you can check out my podcast on all major podcast platforms. And on YouTube, we're on YouTube and we are out every Tuesday. So just look out for it. And you can even go to the Instagram page at The Unfiltered by Jade also.
All right. That works for me. So Jade, I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Productive Podcast. You know you're welcome back anytime. I thank you so much, and we will be talking very, very soon. Okay?
Thank you.
So guys, now we're going to go to another segment of the show where we do our podcast showcase. That's right, the podcast showcase, or I'd like to call it the podcast profile, where we profile a podcast that I happen to listen to. And I think you might listen to it as well. It's a podcast called On the Edge with April Mahoney. On the Edge with April Mahoney. Go check it out. You may like it as well. Now it's time for the podcast giveaway. We give away a prize on the Productive Podcaster each week. And how do you get, see, they're asking already. They want to know right now, they want to know how can they get a prize? Everybody want to know how they can get something for free. So I'm gonna tell you guys how you can get the prize. And it's very simple. All you have to do is go to the Facebook page, which is called The Productive Podcaster.
You keep doing that.
Yes. So that's all you gotta do is go to the Productive Podcaster Facebook page, and you may get, but you got to engage. You can't just go to the page. You got to engage with us, and then we we can see if you're going to get one of our prizes. So today you're going to love this because I still got Jade here. Y'all can hear her still here. The gift is going to someone named Jade Woodfork. Jade Woodfork is getting a copy of my book, an audio copy of my book, Why Didn't You Get It Done? So y'all can see the hard copy. She's getting an audio copy of my best-selling book, Why Didn't You Get It Done? And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to give the productivity quote before we sign off. And the productivity quote today comes from, where did it go? Wajahat Ali, and it says, I mean, what does it say about us that we regret nothing? Ooh, what does it say about us that we regret nothing? So basically it's saying that some things in our life we're gonna regret. Sometimes opportunities we pass up. like starting that podcast. How about that? So everyone, make sure you are productive. Make sure you start that podcast. I want to thank my guest, Jade Lawrence, for being on the show, and check out her podcast, The Unfiltered by Jade. And make sure you subscribe to the Productive Podcast. To tell all your friends, share it. Make sure you are with us on our Patreon page as well. We're looking forward to having you all support us, and we have lots of gifts for you. And if you guys want to start a podcast, if you guys want to get more in media, make sure you check out what we've put here with the Make Money from Media Challenge. I'd love to see you guys take part in that. And let us find out how we can help you with the podcast as well. So with that being said, guys, I want to say goodbye to everybody and have a great day. And like I always say, don't just settle for being awesome. Set your goal to all them all and take action. We'll see you next time on the Productive Podcaster. Thank you for joining us on the Productive Podcaster. Be sure to join us next time for another great show. We welcome your engagement, so make sure you participate by joining the Productive Podcaster Facebook group and chime in. Also, share the Productive Podcaster with some of your friends right now. If you have a podcast and you're looking for guests, or if you would like to be a guest on a podcast, join our podcast exchange at www.podcastworlddirectory.com. We'll see you next time.